We want to continue our celebration of the Stanley Cup championships right now with a story that is 20 years in the making. Brad Parker was a colleague of ours at News Channel 8, and he's on the Newsline right now to talk about something that happened to him back in 1998. And it was an entirely different kind of evening over at, was this the Cap Center or was this the MCI Center at that time?
It was MCI Center. I think it was the first season at MCI.
So the arena, but under a different name. And
Right.
And Brad, you were down there working, and the Caps got swept by the Detroit Red Wings in 4 games. And after your responsibilities had ended, you sort of made your way down into the back rooms of the place there. On the one side, the Caps, and it was a really quiet locker room over there. At the other end of the hall, it was the Red Wings, which is a pretty raucous celebration. Take us through what happened next.
Yeah, so, you know, a lifelong hockey fan, a lifelong Caps fan, and, you know, it was a sad night. And I stood there listening to the deafening silence on one side, and then I heard that celebration happening. And I made the decision to turn left, and I went to the Red Wings locker room, and the door opened right as I got there, and I just walked right in. And they were going crazy. It was kind of like a behind-closed-door version of what you've seen Ovi and Oshie and the boys doing last Saturday. And nobody cared that I was there. So I walked right in and sat down and just soaked it in, and it was amazing because that team was stacked. It was their second straight win and their second straight Stanley Cup, and you had guys like Brendan Shanahan, you know, 3 or 4 Hall of Famers. Sergei Fedorov, who later became a Capital, was on that team. And I was in awe just watching these guys fill that Stanley Cup with champagne and pass it around. And that's what they were doing. They're all just taking a drink out of the cup and handing it. And they were passing it around to every single person in the room. And, you know, as a lifelong fan, I know all about the superstitions of the game. And one of them is you don't touch the Stanley Cup until you win, right? And I'm a Caps fan. So as I'm sitting there, they pass it along, and I realize, oh, my God, I'm the next person in line. They're going to hand me the Stanley Cup and let me drink champagne out of the Stanley Cup. And sure enough, one of the players takes a chug and, grinning ear to ear, he turns and hands me the Stanley Cup filled with champagne. And I started to reach for it, and then I said, no, the Caps didn't win. I'm not going to jinx this for my team. And I started to reach, and I pulled my hands back, and I said, no thanks. And he looked at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world and said, okay, and handed it to the next person in the room, and I just sat there and watched. And I thought, you know, someday the Caps are going to win the Cup, and somehow, maybe, I'll end up getting a drink.
Has one been offered you yet? Because I think you're probably due one as a result of that.
I think I'm about the only guy in D.C. that hasn't been offered one yet, but no, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened.
That's entirely possible. That is, and the great thing about this is you knew the Stanley Cup lore, and there are all kinds of things that you are supposed to and not supposed to do.
Right.
And not the least of which is if you haven't won it, you're not supposed to touch it, much less hoist it over your head. And a couple of people have gotten into a lot of trouble for having done that, who had nothing to do with hockey.
Well, I'll say there's been a lot of times over the last 20 years where I thought, wait, what did you do? Like, we're not going to win it anyway, and you wasted this chance.
Yes.
But every once in a while I would say, no, they're still going to win it, and I'll be able to sleep with myself. You know, I'll be able to go to bed at night and know that it's not my fault.
It's not on your shoulders. Well, how are you feeling right now, Brad?
It's been such an amazing week. The whole past few months, you know, so much pain over the past, I don't know, I'll go back to the 80s from that 4 overtime Easter epic against the Islanders back in 86. You know, the torture that we've been through as fans, and to keep coming back and believing, the payoff was absolutely worth it. And, you know, I was down there watching outside for Game 5.
Yes.
And the atmosphere was unbelievable. The celebration afterwards, to be at downtown, outside the arena, that same building, and to watch this city celebrate like that, and to be at a large celebration after a sporting event, after a championship, see that many people going crazy and have nothing bad happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't see any fights, any violence, any anger. Everyone was happy. Everyone had fun. It was fantastic. It was everything we wanted it to be. The way they came home and shared it with the city was perfect. And then today, it's just been amazing.
And thank you for sharing this great story, because it's
thank you.
It's a wonderful thing, and if you were worried about it, there is absolutely no curse as a result of you now, and I do think they owe you a drink out of the thing, frankly.
I hope that it happens. I'll also say that was in June of '98. In August of '98, I went on a first date with someone we both know named Julie. We ended up getting married a year and a half later. Today's our oldest daughter's 15th birthday. So I think everything turned around that night.
You've had a pretty good week, I'd say.
Yeah, not bad, right?
Not bad at all. Brad, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me show you something. Thanks so much, Brad. Let me show you something that I think is a real class move. This was today in the Las Vegas newspaper, the Review-Journal, thanks. The Capitals bought an ad in it, and it says, "A message from the Capitals to the Golden Knights," and I'm quoting now, "Congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights on the most successful inaugural season in the history of professional sports." And almost lost in all this is that was a first-year team. All of those players were playing for somebody else last year. And to do what they did is nothing short of a sporting miracle, but a real class act on the part of our hometown team. We'll be right back.